How's it going, guys, and welcome back to BL3's Forgotten, the series where I take a look at unused and not often talked about pieces of gear to determine whether or not they deserve to be remembered within the modern meta of the game or should be left behind and forgotten. And today we are taking a look at the Ripper. If you'd like to farm the Ripper for yourself, you'll want to fast travel over to the Droughts on Pandora, specifically taking just the Droughts fast travel station. From there, exit back out of the map into Covenant Pass, where you will hit a save station right outside of the travel tunnel. From there, carry on forward until you enter Shiv's arena, killing Shiv, who can drop you the Ripper. The Ripper is a legendary Dahl SMG, able to roll in any of the elements, and able to roll with 1 or 2 projectiles for 1 or 2 ammo costs per shot respectively. The Ripper is always bladed and has the unique effect that when meleeing an enemy, that enemy will take 250% bonus damage from the Ripper's projectiles for the next 5 seconds. While under this debuff, they will look like they're bleeding with a unique visual effect. Now, worth noting with this, the damage only works for the Ripper. You can swamp away and have the bleeding effect still active on an enemy, but unless you shoot it with a Ripper, you do not get the bonus damage. This goes for anything outside of guns as well, like grenades or action stills or Meteor drones. It is only the Ripper damage that gets the bonus damage. The Ripper has received a couple of buffs, initially gaining just an increase to its melee damage bonus, which was later followed up by a 166.7% weapon damage increase. Now, I'm sure there's a couple fucking nerds out there that are going, 250% bonus damage? Actually, it's 100%. Or potentially you're part of the even smaller group that would say it's 200%, in which case, please Google Loot Lemon. Nothing against Mental Mars, but the layout of that website is kind of ass. However, to be clear, the 100% and the 200%, both of those are actually the same answer. It's just that Mental Mars includes the 1+ part of that section of the damage formula alongside the +1 that would be the 100%. So effectively, both Loot Lemon and Mental Mars are saying it is a ×2 damage bonus. Now, when I say 250% bonus damage, I mean that is a 3.5 times multiplier. Because, apparently the Ripper got stealth buffed at some point, and not many people actually noticed. It was at one point 100%, but at some point that changed, and through all my testing, it was consistently a 250% bonus damage. Now, along with that, this damage is not gun damage, elemental damage, V2, V1, or a global debuff, which makes this a completely unique 3.5 times multiplier on top of all of your damage. And with it not stacking with global debuffs, that means it is multiplicative with the It's Piss, Laid Bare, Jite Sevs, and the Servos Execute, which is pretty fucking insane. Now, if I am wrong about any of this and someone knows, please let me know and I'll pin your comment. I did test this, I crunched the numbers, but no matter how many times I saw the results, I felt like I was doing something wrong because it seems wild that this gun, having an extra 250% bonus damage while being a completely unique modifier, isn't information that's really listed elsewhere. Especially considering all that means the Ripper might have some sauce.
Sit down, stand up, pass out, wake up, fade it, fade it.
Nah, I done grew up around some people living their life in bodies. Granddaddy had the golden flash that broke every day in Chicago. Some people like the way it feels, some people want to kill their sorrow, some people want to fit in with the popular. That was my problem. I was in the dark room, loud tunes, looking to make a vow soon that I'ma get fucked up, filling up my cup. I see the crowd mood changing by the minute, and the record will repeat. Took a sip, then another sip, then somebody said to me,
Holy flark. These 2 words were my assessment after running the Ripper on True Guardian Takedown. That was straight up all my brain could think to write. There it is in my notes. I've heard and talked so much shit about this gun over the years, about how it's an awesome idea held back by poor numbers or whatever. Bro, I was just straight up wrong as fuck. I could get out of Fight for Your Life on Zane as long as I was able to apply this effect to an enemy. All my Zane heads out there are already salivating. This gun is pretty damn good and pumps out a hell of a lot of damage as long as you have that debuff applied. Because without the bleed, it's kind of mid damage. It is alright without the effect active, but it's just really not anything too spectacular. And it does mean that proccing the effect is pretty much necessary for this gun to be worthwhile, which can be a bit of an issue versus enemies that are difficult or impossible to melee. What does sort of solve this a little bit is the ×2 variant of this gun, which actually doesn't take too huge of a nerf to individual projectile damage and just overall is a pretty big damage increase. But with the fire rate that's present on the Ripper, you will end up blowing through magazines incredibly quickly, and personally, I wasn't a huge fan of the ×2, significantly preferring the ×1. Now, the importance of proccing the effect does lead into the absolute biggest issue that the Ripper has, which isn't even necessarily an issue with it, but just with how melee in BL3 works, where after hitting an enemy, you have a lockout before you can do anything again. Once you hit an enemy with a melee attack, you have to then wait for the animation to finish, and then you also have a brief lockout after that before you can fire again. Here's a clip showcasing what I mean by this. I'm holding down the trigger the entire time through this, and you can see it takes a little bit of time before I'm actually able to start firing again. This is a weapon that is made for gun builds, where you do have to shoot the gun to get the most out of it, but that does mean that as a gun build, you have to get very close to an enemy to apply the effect. Already, that is putting yourself in danger, but on top of having a few moments where you just can't even fire back, it can be a little bit rough. That being said, with the damage that it does dish out, I genuinely think that this being the biggest issue is still wildly impressive. Now, some synergies with the Ripper that I think are very worth mentioning. I found it incredibly nice with No Way Out, not only just due to the debuff stacking with the bonus damage, but also being able to yoink fuckers in to slap them around is a lot nicer than having to run into a group of enemies. Keeping with character specific, it also flows incredibly nicely with Flak's Domination. Of course, you don't need to melee enemies for that still to proc anymore, but with the Ripper, you don't even have to really think about procking it. It's just going to happen in the normal gameplay with this gun. It's also incredibly nice with the Knife Drain and Cut Purse prefixes on relics, as Knife Drain just offers you a little bit more sustain, again being very nice, especially with that lockout, and the Cut Purse just being helpful as the Ripper does have a pretty high fire rate, so getting some ammo back each time you slap someone can be nice, but not that either of those are absolutely necessary. This gun also flows great with the Groundbreaker, feeding into that gameplay loop very well. Sometimes after an exceptionally good murder, the next dude you smack just aerosolizes. But out of all that, likely the strongest synergy, and the one that is going to wipe away everything I just bitched about, is that the Ripper's bleed can actually be applied through other sources of melee damage, namely the Stinger and the Fish Slap. Unfortunately though, it can't be applied with the Kensei, but using those to be able to bypass the need to melee an enemy can be incredibly helpful, as it just lets you ignore the issues of putting yourself in potential danger, and again that melee lockout. It just makes the gameplay so much smoother, and if you do want to heavily use the Ripper, I would recommend maybe looking into a build that utilizes one of those options. Overall though, the Ripper is just very fun, very unique, and just, it's neat. It's a neat gun, but even more than being neat and unique, it's also incredibly strong, offering a huge multiplicative damage bonus just on top of everything. The biggest drawback to it is just that for a gun that is meant to be used on gun builds, it can be a little bit annoying to actually play around with the special effect, having to melee enemies instead of shooting them. It's definitely a gun that some people just aren't gonna like, but I'm not some people, motherfucker. I love this thing. That's gonna about do it for this one though. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all of that. I'll be live right after this video goes up, right here on YouTube and also over on my Twitch channel, where there'll be a link to down in the description below, and just under that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.